Hello, scholars and seekers. My name is TBSkine, and welcome to the monthly Patreon Q&A, well, supporter Q&A podcast thing, What I Do, which is a monthly podcast that I do every month, where I take questions from people who support me, whether they support me in Patreon or with a coffee donation or Twitch subscriber or whatever, and then I answer the questions by talking words into a microphone the way I'm doing now. I'm using a different avatar than usual. This isn't a VTube thing. This is more of a PNG tuber sort of setup, but it's a little bit easier to get going, and I don't have to pull my webcam out and point it at my face and stuff. Which, so yeah, just using that one for this one. We've got a bunch of questions this time. I've tried something new. I've tried to organize them by length, so we'll get through all the short questions first, and then I can warm up and go on a massive ramble sometime near the end. I do want to add an animation to this guy when he talks, though. Like, I want to make the mustache go up or down or something, which is a thing that you can do. So maybe that's something I should look into to give him a little bit more life when he talks. Anyway, our first question is from Zinsen who asks, Final Fantasy XII when? Good question. I do want to go over it at some point on the Let's Play channel. I don't know exactly when, but it's something that's in the cards. I do want to play Final Fantasy X2 though, but I need to sort of I need to get back to that, and we'll deal with that once we get there. Yozyran asks, do you think the Void Sentry in OP is an allegory to Japan denying its war crimes in World War II? I mean, it's hard to say exactly. I think it could be read as like a... I don't think it's an allegory for it. Like, I don't think it's like a direct, like, oh, we're specifically talking about this thing. I think it is more a thing of like, the government in One Piece remains in power by controlling who can know what about history, which is something that ties into a lot of philosophical concepts about like the power of knowledge and knowledge production and the freedom of information that is necessary for like democracy, and for people to even have any kind of freedom. So I don't know that it's necessarily directly a thing about Japan denying its war crimes. That'll sort of depend on, we need to figure out what the Void Century is, because if we get to the point where we figure out what the Void Century is, and it's like, oh shit, this is an obvious allegory for Japanese war crimes, then yeah, like, if it's a thing of like, oh yeah, the world government did a whole bunch of atrocities, they like invaded places and like made people into, like, forced them into prostitution and committed slaughters and like, then yeah, obviously that's the thing. But absent any knowledge of what specifically happened in the Void Century, what the big secret is that they're so intent on keeping secret, can't really say that it's a specific allegory for anything. But it is like, it is a pattern in authoritarian governments that they don't want you to know the full scale of your history, or they only want you to know like a version of history that legitimizes the current system of power, right? And that's something that applies, like, that applies to like Soviet Russia used to do this a lot. Russia today does this a lot. The United States does this a lot. Like, the version of like the forever wars in Iraq and Afghanistan told by the United States and indeed by the coalition governments that helped them invade is a very different one than the one that's actually told by the people who live there, right? And that's sort of always the case everywhere in history all the time. It's not like, it's not something that's unique to any culture. It's just something that you have to be consistently aware of. Alfonso Broccoli, listen to any nice music recently? Yes, indeed. Actually, I can give you some examples. I picked up a Essentials album for Scorpions, who I haven't listened to since I was like 15 or something, which I've been quite enjoying. Like, rock you like a hurricane, like that old, like the cheesy old sort of 80s 90s shit. It's been quite nice. T-Pain's new album, On Top of the Covers, where he does a bunch of covers of a bunch of songs, have been fantastic as well. Sub Radio put out an EP recently that I've quite enjoyed. It has this really sort of cheesy sort of mid 2000s 2010s kind of super poppy, big, bombastic pop music thing going on. I listened to some Hozier recently, sort of in preparation, because he has a single coming out on his new album that I've been really quite taken by, so I decided to go back and listen to some of his older stuff. Dolly Parton, I've been listening to as well. Florence and the Machine, I picked up the Dance Fever album recently. I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm quite excited too. Then there was the new Gorillaz album that I haven't listened to yet either. I picked it up immediately, like the moment I was like, oh shit, Cracker Island. Oh no, wait, I have listened to Cracker Island. Yes, that's the one I have listened to. It was another album I picked up recently that I haven't listened to yet. But I've listened to Cracker Island. I really like it, most of it. There's some fucking bangers on there. It's a really nice next step for them. Let's see. I listened to Harry Styles' Harry's House. And there's only a couple of songs on that album that I like, but I do really like them. Music for a sushi restaurant is maybe a little bit sort of self-indulgent and stuff, but like I do like As It Was. Like that's the hit, right? It's not the same as. I kind of felt that. I kind of felt the vibe of that. What else I've been listening to? I don't think there's anything else new that I picked up recently. No, mostly. Yeah, I mean, I've been listening to Poor Man's Poison as well. And I tried to listen to Beyonce's Renaissance recently. I'm not sure I get that album yet. I think I need to sit with that a little bit more before it sort of sinks in how to actually really feel what that album is doing. But that's about what I've been listening to recently. Great Lake, hello. Any thoughts on the game Signalis? Nope, because I have never played it. Queenini, hello. Of the people you've met in Final Fantasy XIV so far, who do you think is forklift certified? Oh, Tataru. Tataru is not only forklift certified, she is like the multiple years running concurrent like forklift champion of like Eorzea. Like just if you need some shit moved around by on a forklift, Tataru is like just like supernaturally good at it, to the point where people sort of like they get freaked out when they see her drive because it's like, oh my fucking god, this forklift is possessed by a ghost. No, yeah, Tataru is. Arno, the blind stargazer. Have you done military service? No. My number actually came. We have the draft where I live in Denmark, where like once you reach 18, there's a lottery, and like if your number comes up, then you have to go do military service for X period of time. My number did come up, but I got rejected from military service because of my asthma, which I'm quite pleased with because I don't want to. And if they had actually called me in, I would have become a conscientious objector because militaries are bad, actually. My brother did military service. He had a great time. Like he considers it a very positive time in his life, but I have some political reservations. Amagus, what are your hopes and expectations for Riot Pride 2023 if you have any? I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. Like I think there's been a few shakeups in the internal diversity inclusion initiatives internally at Riot. Some people have moved on, some people have left. So like I don't know what the scale of it this year is going to be. I would expect that they'll follow the pattern and like release a short story that sort of confirms something for some champions somewhere. It would be nice like to see some confirmations of like, well, I maybe just return to some of the champions that they've sort of already confirmed. I would love to see like another TF and Graves having a little romantic evening kind of thing. I would not mind at all if we got to like hang out a little bit more with Leona and Diana, like maybe exploring, instead of the happy sort of sappy their youth when they had like a very sort of like cutesy adorable romance, maybe explore some of the fucking torment and angst that they feel about each other nowadays. That would be cool. I mean, maybe that doesn't fit the vibe of what Pride usually wants to do. It wants to be a party, but like give me some torment and some angst and some like, oh god, I hate my ex so much, but I love her, but I hate her. That would be cool. Nico and Nidalee. I think, well, yeah, if I had to take a guess, I'd say Nico and Nidalee, because we've got Melio, we've got the Nefiri, the new champion. Like, that's all sort of focused around the jungles of Ishtal, seems to be. And they've already updated a bunch of voice lines for Nidalee, and like Nico had her mid-scope update and shit. Like, maybe that's what they're sort of setting up for. Like, those champions are getting a bunch of attention. Maybe they'll get the story about how Nico, like, because the original story wasn't, Nico had a crush on Nidalee, a pretty strong one, but then Nidalee was like, yeah, well, I mean, you want me to go and build a new Uvicat tribe with you, but I can't because I have my own pack and I need to stay with them. But there's definitely a story in there about, like, because it's not that Nidalee didn't necessarily have feelings for her pack, it's that she felt an obligation to her pack whom she's leading, or her pride, and she couldn't really leave them behind. And of course, Nidalee is also the leader of a pride. It's basically perfect. They will need to give her a new character design for the art for that, though, because like just use the one that you use on her color story, right? Because her base character design is like maybe don't use that anymore. Kara, thoughts on Fairy Court Callista? Well, I put out a short about it, sort of very briefly talking about it. I wish that her autumn theming was more distinct from the rest of the course. Like, she does have a different color scheme. Like, she does have more autumn-y colors, but she still runs around, like, she still has the same fairy wings thing. She still has the same sort of silken, like, there was an opportunity for Callista, especially because she's armored, to give her beetle shells, right, instead. Like, beetles are a bug that I would associate a lot with autumn, like, with crawling through dead leaves and stuff. Like, iridescent beetle shell armor or something like that would have been so cool. Other than that, she's cool. Like, I do like the idea of reframing the spears that are stuck through her in that way. Like, there's a bunch of cool stuff there. It's just that whole line, I feel like, could have been pushed a lot harder in terms of really going for the seasonal aesthetic. Genie Bouquet, I'd love how you define something being over-designed. It's something I'm struggling with at the moment. Yeah, I mean, that's a vibes thing, ultimately. That's a critical judgment on something, whether it's over-designed or not, right? That's not really an objective measure. It is, you look at the thing and it's like, oh, there's too much shit going on here. The classic example would be, it's something that, like, especially teenagers will struggle with sort of, like, under and over designing their characters, right? And the over designed character that's the example that immediately comes to mind for me is like the persona of some scene kid on DeviantArt back in like the 2009-2010, where like they have rainbow hair and they have like tons of markings on their fur and all kinds of colors, and they have an angel wing and a demon wing, and they're wearing glow sticks, and they've got this very, very elaborate costume, and they've got like eyes with different colors, and they've got this glow around them, and they're casting that, like, where there's just too much shit going on. That sort of would be my mental image of something that is over-designed. It is a design that can't really commit to anything, that's trying to do everything all at once. And I should say, there's nothing wrong with doing that. Like, when you're making an OC for yourself, when you're making a character for yourself, when you're making a persona for yourself, then that persona should reflect whatever the fuck you want to do. Like, that should be whatever the fuck you want to do. And if you want to be like a really bright, colorful rainbow furry with all of the shit on it, and that makes you happy, then that is good. That is good design, because that's what the design is supposed to do. It's a different thing when you're talking about like sort of corporate or commercial products. That's when I think a different standard applies. But I don't want anyone to think that I'm knocking having a really over-the-top or extra persona. In fact, I think that rules, and you should do that. But that would be my sort of example for something that's over-designed. It is a design that lacks clarity of direction, right? Think of something like Link from The Legend of Zelda, right? There's a design, like, we want, the main theme of Link is that he is the courageous hero, right? And so basically everything about his design is built to reinforce like that very sort of, he's a mythical, courageous hero who goes forth and does battle with evil. So he has like a poofy haircut in sort of his original design. He's got like his little tunic because he's a fantasy hero. He's got like the leather boots and some tights, and he's got a shield and a sword. And he's got like elf ears because fantasy, right? Like it's a design, it's a very efficient design that's like focused on doing only one thing, which is like he is the hero whomst goes out and does the hero things. That's sort of Link from The Legend of Zelda. I'm thinking about Link in this case, like specifically his incarnations in like Link's Awakening, Link to the Past, the original Legend of Zelda. Breath of the Wild and games going forward, like the more recent ones, are a little bit more complicated, but that's where Link is designed, right? And he has this very strong color theming, which is like the green, which is like the Link color. It's the color of courage. It's the one that's sort of like used to signify courage as a concept all over Hyrule. So there's this very strong clarity and simplicity because the design is committed to like one thing. And an under-designed design is one that is so minimalistic that it doesn't, like, that a viewer cannot casually at a glance distinguish what the fuck it's supposed to be about. And the classic under-designed character would be, for example, think of the characters on bathroom signs, right? Like these very, very stylized, completely generic, essentially like emojis with bodies kind of characters. That would be underdesigned because it says essentially nothing in the context of a story. It just indicates like the very most basic of attributes. You'll see those kinds of designs used intentionally in RPGs. For example, when you have like the NPC villager or the NPC soldier who runs in and says, "Sire, something terrible has happened at the gate." They tend to be underdesigned because they tend to be designed like specifically and intentionally to be as generic as possible to mark them out visually as characters that don't matter because they don't have anything strong going on, right? And that's using underdesign to create a design that's appropriate for its purpose, but which is not in and of itself interesting at all, right? So when you're thinking about your characters in terms of being over-designed or under-designed, the thing I would advise you to do is, like, literally, like, write a list. What is this character's design meant to express? Like, they probably have a backstory, right? And that backstory probably has a bunch of shit in it. Pick out which parts of this are, like, important to the feeling, the vibe, the theme of this character. Which ones do I want to express or represent visually in their design? And then try and focus down on, okay, what's the minimum number of features? What's the minimum number of details on the character design that I need in order to tell the story of this, and this, right? So if you have a warrior character who has a tragic backstory and who's like a veteran warrior who's been fighting for many years and they lost their wife in some kind of terrible accident. Okay, let's see, we'll give them scars. Is a good place to start. That sort of shows you, okay, they've lived a hard life. You can give them scars, you can give them like injuries, maybe they've lost a limb. That might be a way to sort of indicate this is someone who's been through the ringer. They lost their wife, okay, give them a wedding ring, like a conspicuous wedding ring. Maybe it's a very simple little thing, but it's made of gold, where everything else on the character is like dark and gray and like brown and shit. Maybe their wedding ring is the one thing that they keep polished, so that glows. That's a little shiny gold ring that sort of draws attention. A locket around the neck is another way to do that, where that sort of indicates, okay, they have something that they want to keep close to their heart. That might be a way to do that. Like that sort of thing. Like take yourself through that process of figuring out what's the minimum number of details that will communicate this. Start from there and then add flair and like ornamentation and extra shit on top of that, but without ever overpowering or like exceeding the storytelling significance of the details you want people to focus on. That would be like rambling out loud for a while. That would be my advice for that sort of thing. Barclay, out of all the characters, playable or otherwise, in Team Fortress 2, who do you feel has the strongest design? Ooh, shit, that's a hard one. I don't know who has the strongest design. I really like Sniper. Like of the playable characters, I really like Sniper as a design because it is a funny thing because he's a hunter, right? Like that's the design elements that he, rather than being like sort of like a Call of Duty sniper. So we have to crawl on our bellies until we get into sniper position, like with the fucking ghillie suit or whatever. Rather than do that, he's a hunter. Like, is essentially the thing. He's got a hunting rifle and he's got like the Australian little hat with a curved brim and shit, like the sunglasses. They sort of made him like an outback sort of Australian hunter. I can't do an Australian accent. Like, that's where they went with him, and I think that's really cool, but it still communicates the idea this is a guy who will shoot you in the head from very long range. So that works really well. Of the non-playable characters, I really like Miss Pauling. I really like her as a character because she's designed so well to look like your typical sort of meek personal assistant secretary character, and that's such a good contrast for when she pulls out a gun and shoots someone in the fucking head. So she's quite cool. NK Grimm, now that you've finished Bloodborne, Dark Souls 1 and 2, you think you'll move on to Dark Souls 4? Well, as I've said many times before, we're doing Elden Ring next, and I really need to get back to editing those episodes. I had a hell of a week this week. Not a stressful one, just had to do a lot of fucking things. But now that that's done, I wanna... Yeah, I'm sort of stymied by I need to keep up with the shorts on the Shorts channel, because now that Shorts have rolled out to YouTube, there's a lot more competition for the views, and so in order to sort of just keep the channel at the level that it's at, which I really want to do because it's growing very nicely, I kind of have to ramp up a little bit, and I'm thinking about maybe getting a hold of an editor for that. But anyway, Elden Ring is next, is what I'm trying to get at. Noodle Fiasco, have you played The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog? No, not yet. I have it in my Steam library. I want to do a playthrough on the Let's Play channel. I just need to find time to do that, so it's sitting there until I have that. Emberosia, have you watched any of your stream clips that are so out of context alone that they make you laugh? No, but that's because I still remember all of the shit that happened there. I think, like, once I'm a little further removed from them, and, like, I go back and watch them, that's the point where I'm like, oh, holy shit, like, that's because I'll have forgotten the shit that happened. But as long as I remember it, it's not going to surprise me, and if it doesn't surprise me, I'm probably not going to laugh. Let's see, Snake Oil. Any YouTubers you would like to recommend people check out? Yes. There's my buddy Aronok. I've appeared in one of their videos. And she does fantastic video essays that are definitely worth following. So, like, definitely go check out Aronok. Transparency, I've shown up in a few of their videos as well. They do video essays about all kinds of interesting sort of niche gaming subjects and very popular gaming subjects as well, and usually have really interesting lenses through which to view the games. I would especially recommend the Celeste video and their one on the Star Fox franchise, because those are really interesting. Have you ever broken a bone? Not my own. Ultra Curb. I've been getting back into JoJo lately, so I thought I'd ask, what's your opinion on Dio's design in Part 3 and what makes it work, not work? God, it's been... I've only ever read JoJo. I've never watched it. I've never watched the anime. I've only ever read it. The anime I know from clips and shit. But I only read the... What the fuck's that part called? Like, the part with Jotaro and Dio. That's the only one I've ever read, and I don't remember his design strongly enough in my head to have a opinion about it. Like, JoJo designs, though, generally, they're not really working on the same character design rules or character design principles as something like League of Legends characters are, for example. Like, JoJo characters are much more stylistic and decorative. Like, they're much more high fashion, is sort of where they come from, rather than from, like, the tradition of, like specific storytelling, fantasy design that we'd have in a game like League of Legends, or indeed in most avenues, because JoJo designs come straight out of high fashion, which treats character design like a very different thing. Like Jotaro's character design, for example, which I remember much more clearly in my head. Like, what's the storytelling there? Well, he's not fucking 17, that's for damn... Like, theoretically, this is, like, a high school teenager who was a really good kid, and, like, who was really nice, and then some shit happened, and then all of a sudden, like, he's thrust into this whole business with stance and shit. Nowhere in any of what the fuck Jotaro looks like ever. He does not look like a 17-year-old teenager. He does not look like a high school student. He does not look like a good kid who's, like, gone bad, sort of like there is the element of he sort of looks like the classic image of a Japanese delinquent. Like, that's in there. But all the shit with, like, the hat, the way that it fades into his hair, and, like, the fucking rings he's got on the brim, and, like, the exaggeration of his character design and the fucking faces that Araki draws on him. None of that communicates anything about his history or his story at all. Everything about JoJo character designs tend to be about style and vibe, right? Which is both a strength and a weakness of the character design in that series, and that, like... But I don't have any specific opinions about Dio, which is the thing you actually asked about. Shivarus. What's a Pokemon you want to see get an evolution or a regional form? Oh, shit. I mean, kind of too many to count, because, like, I really want more Rattata forms, because rats exist everywhere and they're cute and adorable, and I want more rats. I want more rats. I want one that's specifically designed to be a fancy rat, like a cute little adorable fancy rat, of the kind that, like, pet keepers like me would get. That would be great. I'd love to have that. Like one that's like a big fat lazy, yeah, adorable. I'd love one where yeah, like one where, like, there's a little bit of sexual dimorphism, where the males tend to be larger and fatter and the females tend to be smaller and more, like, slender and agile. That would be very cool for, like, a regional form for Rattata. They could be based on, like, Dumbo rats, or rats with Rex coats would be cool. Rex coats on rats, sort of depending on the exact kind, they could be, like, really curly and fluffy, almost like sheep a little bit. That seems like something you could definitely base a Pokemon design around. Windhelm, will he do any other boss character design analysis from outside the FromSoft games? After Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3, I would be sad if the series had to wait for another FromSoft game. Yeah, I mean, Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 will take a couple of years, so don't you worry about that. I have been side-eyeing Armored Core a little bit, because I didn't recall, like, my knowledge of the series so far, which is mostly confined to the PS2 era, I didn't remember it as being a game that actually has interesting sort of character design for the bosses, but looking at some of the footage that's coming out about Armored Core 6, I wonder if there is something to the idea of doing storytelling, because it would be funny to go to Armored Core just to continue with the FromSoft games. That might be, I'm sort of siding it, but as I've talked about before, the series that I would have in mind for something to follow up boss designs of the Souls games would be the boss designs of Resident Evil. Like, because I think that is another game series with, like, because it's so heavily based on the monster designs, there might be something to say there, especially considering, like, the surprisingly deep thematics that Resident Evil is actually operating with. Resident Evil Village would probably be my choice for that one, just because the bosses are so distinct. And it would be a shorter series, which would be nice, because there's only so many bosses in that game. So that would be an idea for it. But like I said, Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3, after Dark Souls 3, we're doing Demon Souls, so we have some years to go before I run into enough of a content drought that I have to reach for a new game. Let's see, Joan. Skyen, are you excited for Final Fantasy 16? Have you been following any of the press releases, and do you plan on playing it when it comes out? I am cautiously excited for it. I have some reservations about, like, the way that it's being turned into Devil May Cry. I like Final Fantasies being Final Fantasy and not, you know, necessarily a Devil May Cry action game. So that's something I have some reservations about in terms of how the game will end up feeling, but I am excited for it. I'm definitely planning to play it and stream it. I have not followed much of the press, because the way I usually work with, like, new game releases is I will follow the press releases and, like, the new information until I'm like, oh, okay, I'm buying this game. Like, until I know, like, okay, I'm sold, I'm gonna get it. Like, barring day one, like, oh shit, this game is a technical mess, like what happened to poor Redfall, for example, or Jedi Survivor. I just, like, once I know that I'm gonna buy it, I'm just gonna ignore all of the press, because I want to go in as blind as I can. Like, I kind of prefer that. I kind of prefer the surprise of that. So, yes, Final Fantasy 16 coming to a Twitch channel near you. I am Megan. I want to lead off with a thank you for all that you do, and then my question: which human Pokemon character do you think has the most creative and or strongest design? Shit, I don't know that I could say which human character has the... Because, like, I'll be totally honest with you, I don't remember most Pokemon character designs of the humans. Primarily because, like, most of the generations I've played, it's a fucking long time ago. And I pay a lot more attention to the Pokemon. I do, like, thinking back on the ones that I can remember, I like Nessa a lot. Like, I like the idea of her as, like, this, like, both a Pokemon trainer and a fashion model. I think that's very well executed in her character design, especially her hair contributes to that a lot. I think that works pretty damn well. And, like, if we go back to the ones I remember the best, which is back in Gen 1, I really like Giovanni's design. Because it's, like, it's within the limits of a Pokemon, like, of a Game Boy sprite, right? Which does not leave you a lot of room to work with. But he's still, like, you get the vibe of, like, he looks just so much more sinister than almost any other fucking character in that game. Like, he looks like, oh shit, this is an actual fucking mob boss, actually. Like, he has that little edge of looking a little bit too mature and serious for a game that's otherwise so cartoony and childish, that he kind of goes, oh no. Like, you kind of get a little bit of that, like, oh, it's slightly uncanny in that way, and I really like the way that Giovanni looks in most of his appearances. And I guess the series has gone on, and as the designs have become more elaborate generally, that appeal, that power of his characters has kind of dropped off. But in Gen 1, like, I remember the first time I fucking saw that, like, when I was fighting him as like a boss fight, and then him as the gym leader, I was like, oh god, oh no, that's an adult. Koalada, if you could magically become fluent in 5 languages that you aren't currently fluent in, which languages would you choose? Good question. I think it really would be most of the European, like German, French, Spanish, Italian. I think would be the one. Maybe Greek rather than Italian, something like that. Or maybe some of the I wouldn't mind learning some of the Eastern European languages too, though. But, like, those would probably be my main choices, and then either Mandarin or Cantonese. Just because I think the Chinese languages have some, like, the shit they do with tone and, like, the ways that they work, that would be fucking cool to be able to do. I think that would be cool. But those would be the ones. And mostly, like, I want to learn the European languages because I live here. And it would be convenient for being able to travel around. And Chinese just because I think it's a really cool, strange, interesting language. Well, strange, I say. Strange to me, specifically. Captain Bromane, have you ever played the Octopath Traveler series, and would you even ever consider doing shorts on the character designs found in Octopath? I played Octopath 1. I never finished it. It's sort of, its gameplay systems, its fights and stuff, kind of burnt me out after 10, 15 hours in the game. I liked the story well enough, but it never really grabbed me. I've got Octopath 2 loaded up on my Steam, and I've been sort of thinking about, like, finding time to try and play that and see if that will be a game that would kind of grab me. But until I actually play through them and I feel like I fully understand the themes of the story and shit, I wouldn't do shorts on them necessarily, I don't think. Salaman, I've heard that travel around the EU is exponentially easier than over here in the Americas, so is it? Yes and no, I would say. Like, first of all, Europe is a lot smaller than the United States. Like way fucking smaller, and that makes travel a lot easier. Second, we have more than one travel option. Well, the Americans have two, right? Like, you can go in a car on the roads for 38 hours or whatever, or you can go on a plane and be profoundly uncomfortable and get, like, your anal cavity searched by the TSA and, like, get harassed by security and have to take off your shoe, like, do all that bullshit. So, like, that fucking sucks for you guys. On the other hand, you people don't need passports to go to the next state over, right? At least as far as I know. Like, the United States is one country. And that makes it a lot easier to travel, like, internally in there. As for the rest of the Americas, I don't really know enough about travel in, like, Mexico or in South America to really have an opinion about that, but it is fairly easy inside the Schengen cooperation area, like inside of the EU, because you don't technically, very technically, you don't need a visa, you don't need a passport, very technically, you should always have your passport fucking with you when you're in a foreign country, but you technically don't need it in order to travel. I've traveled without my passport. Like, I got to the airport once, and I realized I'd forgotten my passport. And I could just get on the plane and go. But that depends on each airline might have different, like policies on whether they check a passport or not. But you can just go without a passport to, like, Germany or whatever, and then move to Italy, like, and you have freedom of movement within the EU, which makes it easier. And we have a really strong railway network, so you don't have to fly everywhere if you don't want to. So that, yeah, in that sense, it's a lot smaller than the Americas, and it's a lot more interconnected and has a much more well-built out public transport network. So in that sense, it's easier. My brain is not a squid. Does it feel weird that your shitpost video about mayonnaise is still getting traction on Tumblr? Yeah, well, that's not weird, but it's fun. I quite like it. Like, I can tell on its viewer statistics that it doesn't get a lot of views on YouTube, right? Like, it's going around mostly as the clip of the bit where I lose my shit completely. And that's, like, it's nice. Like, so many people have clearly been so entertained by it. Like, it's been one of those things that makes them laugh, that, like, picks them up, gives them serotonin. And that's nice. Like, I've put a nice thing out into the world that has made a bunch of people happy. That's not weird so much as it's just pleasant. Joyce W. Art, have you seen the new YouTube animated series Lackadaisy and or Monkey Wrench? If yes, would you be interested in doing an animation analysis for those? I have not watched either the Lackadaisy or I don't know Monkey Wrench, so I don't know anything about that. Lackadaisy I know about. I've followed it for a long time. I really do want to watch it. I don't know that I would do an animation breakdown for it. Like, it depends, like, I'll watch it, and then if I have something interesting to say, maybe. But I don't know, because I haven't watched it yet. Matrox DX. Hey, Skyn, I know you don't like talking about favorites, but from what I've gathered from playing, you have gathered from playing D&D, is there one specific class or subclass you would see yourself gravitate most often towards? No, because the only two classes I've ever played in D&D for more than a couple of sessions is Rogue, specifically a Swashbuckler Rogue, and a Cleric. So I don't know enough about, like, I want to try all of them. Like, I definitely want to play a Warlock at some point. I definitely want to play a Ranger. Maybe a Gloomstalker would be fun, or a Swarmkeeper. I've also sort of been tempted by. I want to play Fighter. Like, I really want to try a Battlemaster to see, because I like the idea of the maneuvers that they have. I have an idea for a Halberd build where you like get Sentinel and what's the other one? Polearm Master, right? Because then like anything that enters into your range, you can attack it with like a opportunity attack the moment it enters your range, and because you have Sentinel, you can reduce its speed to 0, which means you can just stop it in its tracks by hitting it one time. And that's really cool for crowd control and shit. Like I feel like that would make for a really good tank warrior, like a crowd control tank warrior. Maybe like from a Warforged to get the extra AC, something like that. But I don't have any specific class that I see myself gravitating towards. I'd need to play them all at least once and then see how it feels. Miggy like Ziggy, in your opinion, what makes a compelling character design? I don't know. That's not really a question to which I can give you a simple or single answer. That depends on everything. The context, what's it designed for? Is this a commercial product? Is this a personal thing? Like, there's a lot of shit that goes into that. So I can't really give you a straight answer on that, but I've been working on designing my D&D party I play, but I would like some advice on what to emphasize and how to make each character distinct. And yeah, I mean, that sort of goes back to what I said about like the advice I gave about over and under designing, is like figure out what are the things, if you like when someone sees this character, just looks at them, what would you like them to know about the character? What is the things you would like them to go, oh, okay, like that's what we're dealing with here. So think about, what do you want to show, and what do you want to hide, right? So if you think about, say, a rogue, for example, like if you think about like a mastermind rogue, right? What would you like to show about a mastermind rogue? Like, because they're all the planners. They're the ones like they have the mental abilities. They're the planners. They do the like information reconnaissance gathering. They have all the skills. The classic thing would be to go for like a Moriarty rogue, right? Like someone who's like sort of looks intellectual and quite like quite distinguished. Like, oh yeah, I'm an upper class person who's like masterminding things with my brain. Oh yes, like that would be a way to go. But you could also have, okay, this is the mastermind of the party, but they're also clever enough to not want anyone to know that they're the leaders, so maybe you design them to look like a fucking drunk, right? Like maybe they like always running around with a beer can on, just like, sorry, and it's like maybe they've got some stains on their shirt, they look kind of fucking ragged, like until no one's looking, at which point they switch over and go, right, here's the plan, right? It's think about what information do you want people to have when they see the character, and what information do you not want people to have when they see the character. And then pick out, like, don't try to tell, like, if you have a long list of shit that you want people to see, narrow it down to the most important ones, start there, and, like, do a minimalist design of, like, only the elements that you need, and then add on to it from there, would be my process. And you can also, like, some of the advice I usually give on my Final Fantasy XIV, when people ask me to review their glams, there's this thing about the statement piece, right? Which a hat is, for example, a really good statement piece. If you give someone a really big, elaborate, like, pirate hat with, like, a feather in it, and it's like, oh, like the fucking skull and bones on the front, then pretty much no matter what costume you put underneath, doesn't matter. Like, you can put them in a suit and tie. So long as there's a pirate hat on their head, they are a pirate. Like, everything about that character will read as a pirate because the hat is the statement piece. Like, it defines everything about how you read the rest of the character. You cannot get away from it. And statement pieces in that way can be very, very useful if you have, like, one element that is so much the one thing. Like, because a pirate hat is like, no, there's only one kind of character that wears a fucking pirate hat, and it's a fucking pirate, so everything else about this character is now piratey by association. Find those elements. Like a crown, for example, is like, okay, this is a noble, this is a king, this is a ruler, this is someone who like who gives orders, or who's in charge, or who's like raised above the rest. Like a crown will do that. That's a statement piece. Something like boxing gloves are a statement piece. Like everything else, when you put boxing gloves on a character, everything else about the character revolves around those boxing gloves now, no matter what the fuck else they look like. So like find a statement piece, like a one big eye-catching feature that really defines the character, and then you can sort of build around that as a starting point. So like to go back, if you had a paladin, for example, a shield is often a statement piece. Like a shield with a big religious emblem or something like that. It's kind of go, okay, that's a tank, and they have a big religious emblem on it, so there's some sort of religious warrior. Like, that's a really good place to start building a paladin from, is like if they have a shield, right? Or if they are an Oath of Vengeance paladin, maybe like a big motherfucking fuck-off sword. with runes inscribed on it. Maybe it's glowing. Maybe it's got like a really elaborate hilt. Maybe it's got something tied to the end of it, like a streamer coming off the hilt or something with like, I don't know, like pictures of the people that the paladin is trying to avenge, shit like that. Like find something that's a statement piece that sets the tone for everything else, and then follow that. Matrox again, do you think League of Legends lore would prosper if Riot fully gave Riot Forge the reins of the lore creative process and simply made sure to follow what they come up with in subtle ways, but never do any major lore stuff of their own? That's a really complicated question that I can't really give a straight answer to, I don't think. Because Riot Forge, you have to remember, is not a game studio. They don't make anything. They are a publishing arm within Riot that goes out to other studios and farms out projects to them. And everything Riot Forge has made so far is spun off from stuff that exists in the main League of Legends lore, right? Like everything that League of Legends lore is based around the champions primarily. And the primary product of League of Legends, the game, is the skins. That's the thing that makes the money. But the secondary product is the champions on which the skins go. And so long as the entire lore of League of Legends ultimately revolves around the champions, as it kind of must, there would, like, you would have to let League of Legends, the main League of Legends game, which is the game that relies on those champions, will have to keep defining that shit, right? So that's not... I don't think I have a straight, simple answer to that. Like, Riot Forge has done way better with the material than League of Legends itself has. Like boy howdy, that they're doing a much better job of storytelling for these champions, but I don't think Riot Forge could invent new champions, right? Like, in that sense. I don't think they could be the primary source of the universe in that way. I might say that, like, you could give the reins over to Legends of Runeterra, except that's a much less popular product, and it's not making nearly enough money for Riot to want to invest it with that kind of power. So, you know, there you go. Varia the Villain. What is your opinion on Gajinkas, as in humanizations of characters that aren't human? Is there something that's inherently lost when turning a character into a human? Yes. The other way around, something gained? Yes. Or is it complicated in the ways that you would like to discuss? No, not really. I think you've got it. Like, there is no... I don't really have a simple answer on that, which is like when you make a Gajinka, obviously what's lost is the inhumanity of the character that you made it from, right? Like, when you take a wolf character and turn them into a Gajinka, like a humanized character, it's like, okay, you lose all of the communication that comes from their wolf form. Like, you lose all of the, like, maybe they have a broken fang, maybe like they have like a really sort of fucked up fur or whatever, maybe they have a specific thing that's going on with their wolf form, and all of the thematic association that we have with wolves also goes away, right? So instead you gain a human form, which is much more readable, much more appealing to a human audience. Like, human beings just... on a neurological level, we recognize and we like seeing human faces, right? So you gain that extra appeal, and you gain the ability to use all of the features of a human being to do storytelling. So you can't make them a wolf anymore, but you could give them a big fur coat. You could do all kinds of things with, like, giving them long fingernails. Maybe they have kind of fangs. Maybe they have that broken tooth in their mouth, same way that the wolf form does. Like, you can do a lot on a human character with fashion, with clothes, with, like, posture, with subtlety of expression that you kind of can't do on an inanimate character, like a wolf or a golem or, like, whatever. So, like, there's something gained in that with humanity, with human characters, much more subtlety is possible than with many other things, because human brains are tuned so acutely to read human character designs. Misplaced Raven, is there a Danish name for a Pokemon that you like better than the English-Japanese counterpart? No, because in Danish, we just use all the English names. Like, there are no Danish translated names. I think they have them in Norway, maybe? But most European countries, like, it's only really the major languages like German and French that have translated names, and I'm not even sure about France, actually. So no, we just have the English ones. Bruder. Yeah, hello, Bruder. Hello, Mr. Skyen. You get to do a little time traveling, and you are allowed to hold a 1-hour conversation with a person in the past, ignoring language barriers. Who would said person be, and what would you try to talk about? Sorry, forgive. I just couldn't with Bruder. Yeah. Huh. That's a fucking difficult question. Who would I want to talk to? Like, shit, because, like, most people in the past fucking suck when you start to sort of get into and read about them. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know who I would pick for that. Because, like... Well, actually... I would like to go talk to Terry Pratchett before Alzheimer's really kicked in for him. I'd like to have a chat with him. That would be nice. Seth the Seal. Hello, I hope you're having a good day. Have you ever played a game from the immersive sim genre? And do you have any opinions on them? Yeah, I played Thief back in the day. I played that a lot. I enjoy the hell out of that. Played Bioshock back when that was relevant. I don't know if that really counts as an immersive sim in that way, though. Never played Prey. I played Deus Ex, but the Human Revolution, and, like, I played Mankind Divided for a while. I didn't like them very much. I don't think they were that good, really. I think they were very... They just couldn't resist being shooters, ultimately, and that kind of sucked. So I don't have any strong opinions on immersive sim as a genre, really. And consequently, like, I've never played System Shock before, so I don't have any interest in the System Shock 1 remake as such, because I don't have any nostalgia for the thing. Like, compared to any of the other games that are coming out, I feel no particular attraction to System Shock 1. Manjard, I know you're quite busy. This would be the last thing on your list, but would there perhaps be a chance you would play Bramble the Mountain King on your Let's Play channel? I don't know that game, so the answer, like, naturally would be no, but... Just, hang on. Just Googling it and pressing my hotkeys in the process. Oh, wait, fuck. Is this the one with the... Okay, I've seen clips of this on TikTok. The one, like, where you're jumping across the lake and there's a nuke. Shit, I might play that. That actually, I could be convinced. Maybe. I'm not promising anything, though. I have no idea when. Or how much. So, no idea. But that does look like something I might enjoy playing. Hi, Mrs. Skyen. What advice would you give to people that love diving deep into games and discussing them but don't want to start a YouTube channel themselves? I would say my advice would be don't start a YouTube channel at all. Like, that's... if what you like is to discuss this stuff and, like, talk to people and get feedback and have conversations about it, starting a YouTube channel is a terrible idea because you don't get to have conversations with people. You get to talk at them, and then they will talk back at you, and that's a very different thing that is often a lot less pleasant. So... yeah, no, don't do that. I would say the spaces for discussion for that sort of thing would be to, like, a place might be to find a YouTuber who talks about the stuff that you're interested in, and then check out their Discord if they have one. Like, find their fan communities, and they will probably also be people who are interested in discussing that sort of thing. So that will be a way to start. Reset Era might be a place where you can find those kinds of conversations. I haven't been on there in years, though, so who knows? It might have changed since I was around. There used to be good conversation to be found on the Game FAQs discussion boards. I don't think that's happening anymore. Game FAQs is also a very changed website. But, like, it's like, if my best advice would be to find a community that seems to care about the same things that you do, and then find out where they hang out and go there. Codename Foul, good whenever it currently is. Considering a recent game brought their characterization to the forefront, I would like to get your opinion on something League-related. What do you think makes a good Yordle? Hard to say, because we don't... because League of Legends still refuses to be quite clear about what exactly the fuck a Yordle is. Because, like, characters like Kled, and, like, Vex, and, like, many of the Yordles we have are sort of parody interpretations or cartoonified versions of their region, right? Like, so Kled is a cartoonified version of Noxus. Like, he's Noxus taken to a ridiculous degree. Poppy is Demacia taken to a ridiculous degree. Not in the sense that she's comedic, but in the sense that she's like, oh, okay, like, this is all about, like, duty and self-effacement and, like, not putting yourself above others. Yeah, no, that's Poppy in a nutshell, right? But then you have characters like Tristana, who's kind of not that. Who's not really a representative of any particular region. She is just the Bandle City gunner. And you have Lulu, who's like, sort of like, maybe, I guess she would be a representation of, like, the spirit realm, the fairy realm, like that sort of, like, the space in which Bandle City itself exists, but not of Bandle City. So it's like, it's kind of all over the place, and that's the thing about Yordles, is that they can be whatever the hell you want. I think, given the character design that they have, like they are chibis, right? Like they are little creatures with big heads. You do kind of have to go a little bit in the cartoony direction. Like you do have to go a little bit in like you can't, like think about Vex, for example. You can't really have an edgy Yordle in that way. Like you end up with, like, if you try that, I think you're going to unintentionally end up with Vigar. And Vigar is like, yeah, oh, fear me, I am the terrible Vigar. Like he's silly. He's inherently silly, and there's nothing that can be done to make him not silly. It simply isn't possible. So I would say that you probably couldn't do an edgy Yordle, really, because their fundamental character design will always undercut that angle. But like, have a strong concept is the thing. Like, have a clear idea for what their personality is meant to express, and really focus in on that. Like because you have much less space to work with on a Yordle body. Like you don't have a lot of room for costuming on Yordles, for example. Like the head is the majority of their character. You kind of have to take that into consideration. You have to have a design that can be expressed within the limitations of a Yordle body, right? So that would be sort of my off-the-dome thoughts about that. Ryan, 907345. I've always been curious about when you're analyzing Mass Effects, if BioWare being primarily Canadian at the time but still pulling heavily on the themes of American politics and military plays a part in how you would look at the series as a whole, and if it doesn't, how so? I mean, yeah, it's like... it's gonna offend all the Canadians to say, what's the fucking difference, frankly? They're North American. And especially like in like what Mass Effect, where Mass Effect came from, which is like the security politics of the war on terror. It's like, it doesn't matter that much that they're Canadian, to be honest. Because Canada was moving very much in lockstep with the United States about those things at that point. I don't think that mattered that much, and I don't think it matters that much to my reading of the game, because like Canada and America, not the United States rather, not the same place, don't have exactly the same culture, and certainly don't have exactly the same history, but also more overlap than difference, I think. So that doesn't matter. More ME3 when, you ask? Well, I've just recorded the end of Mass Effect 3 yesterday and send it off for editing. So whenever the Ember Hearts are done editing episodes, that's when they will be coming out on the Let's Play channel. It is finished, so now we just have to you just have to wait. But it'll be there. Ashen Forest. I've recently started playing Elden Ring, both thanks to your series and encouragement from my cousin who actually owns the game, and my own will to get out of my comfort zone. It's also my first Souls-like. As a person with experience, do you have any advice for us young Tarnished, apart from patience and get good? Worth noting that I'm a stubborn keyboard warrior, I guess. I don't get good. I don't think get good is good advice. It's comedic, it's silly, it's a sort of catchphrase, but it's not good advice, actually. The advice I would have is, especially when it comes to Elden Ring, is like, if there's an area that's not fun to play through, if there's like, if you're being frustrated, if you're being stonewalled, if you can't make it through, go somewhere else. Just fuck off. You just walk out. You can just leave. And you should just go somewhere else, because Elden Ring is huge and there are so many other places to see, and you should find areas that you enjoy playing through, that you have fun fighting the enemies, and like, go there, grind up, get stats, get more powerful, and then come back to the ones that aren't fun and fucking steamroll that shit. Would be my advice for Elden Ring. Matrox again. Hey Sky, I have a couple of questions I forgot to ask you last month after you mentioned you've watched all of Super Eye Patch Wolf's video. Not all of them. I've watched his videos, but not every single one he's ever made. Are you by any sliver of a chance of wrestling fan? Nope. I know next to nothing about wrestling. Like, I know a few things from watching one of Super Eye Patch Wolf's videos about it, but wrestling, I don't know anything about it. I've never followed it. I don't understand it very much. Like, I understand that it's a big cartoony punch fights between big cartoony characters, and I know that that's fun, but I've never watched it, and so I don't have any sense of what makes a good gimmick for a wrestler, frankly. So can't help you there. Isa, hi, you said you have no interest in Valorant due to its competitiveness. Well, yes and no. I have no interest in Valorant due to its versus, like, its PvP competitiveness. If it was a competitive cooperative game, like where it's like people cooperate to do a task and then that's how they get their high score or whatever, and pit that against another team, I would be more interested. And I know, yes, it's a team game, you cooperate with your own team, but like, I don't want to play against humans, is what I'm saying. But would you up to review the character designs and more animation videos like you did with Die For You? Sort of. I've thought about it. it's more a thing of like, if I'm gonna go in that direction, I kind of have to commit a little bit to it. And it's a thing of like, it's algorithm balancing. You know, it's like it's a thing among many other things that I could spend my time on, and it's not high on the priority list. Second question: which characters or storyline would be your preferred ones making a game like the Mage Seeker? Like like the Mage Seeker, like a top-down action game? Shit, I don't know. Like, who would be especially good at that? Like, well, any other characters, like, obviously can fight in that kind of top-down perspective. But which ones would suit it? It would have to be someone with a lot of movement abilities. Because, like, I don't think Kled would be a good fit, for example, even though he has a lot of, like, he has the charge with Skarl. That's kind of, I don't know. I would like Kled Pinball. Like, where you're riding on Skarl and, like, bumping into things. That would be cool. I don't know. I don't know who'd be a good fit for, like, a Mage Seeker style game, necessarily. Katarina. Katarina might be a good fit for a Mage Seeker style game. Which, like, if you wanted to do, like, a direct follow-up to the Mage Seeker, she would be a good champion to go for. She's already connected to that story. That would work. Someone like Katarina, because she would also be, like, it would also have to be someone who's, like, gets caught in combat arenas to fight a bunch of people regularly, and Katarina does do that. So yeah, like, Katarina might be a good fit. Play game on. Are there any specific elements of the Lord of the Rings movie adaptation that you prefer to the books and vice versa? No, I don't consider a lot of comparison between them very meaningful, because they are so much their own thing. It's like, because, like, I could say that, like, I really like the Tom Bombadil section. It's very silly. It doesn't fit the rest of the books at all. But also, to me, that's just quintessentially Lord of the Rings. Like, you can't have Lord of the Rings without Tom Bombadil. Hey, doll, merry doll, ring-a-dong-dillo, ring-a-dong, hop along, fall the willow, Tom Bum, jolly Tom, Tom Bum. Like, you can't fucking have Lord of the Rings without that. But you had to have the movies without that, because it wouldn't fucking work in the movies. Like, that would grind the entire first film to a halt for no reason. Like, so you can't have him in the movies. Like, I think the adaptation is its own thing in a way that doesn't really, in my brain, compete with the books. On a related note, I know you don't engage with Magic the Gathering, but you're aware of the Lord of the Rings crossover they're doing. Yes, because I've seen TikToks about it. Like, for whatever reason, because I think I do follow a bunch of Lord of the Rings shit on TikTok, it decided to put, like, the Lord of the Rings cards in front of me. And I quite like them. Like, I quite like what they did with Aragorn, for example. Like, there's some nice stuff there, but Magic always has high-quality art. That's really no surprise to anyone. Arathane, greetings, Sky, and I've watched your Overlord video and it got me curious. What do you think of the later seasons, if you watched them? They introduce a lot of interesting content, but I'm curious, especially regarding to how they mesh with your reading of the anime and the novel. Any notable character designs in Overlord? I don't... it's been too long since I've engaged with Overlord to have any strong opinions on it. I watched all three... I think there's 3 seasons, right? Like, yeah. Like, I watched at least 3 seasons of Overlord, and I quite enjoyed it. And then I read ahead in the light novel, and it kind of runs out of steam. Like, it sort of runs out of interesting ideas, and that's something that an anime can fix by sort of condensing a lot of shit down and, like focusing more on the interesting stuff that happens. That's usually how anime adaptations go when they're good. But it kind of ran out of steam. It sort of lost a sense of going anywhere, and I lost interest. Because, like, if I don't get a sense that the story is building towards something, that it doesn't have a clear idea of where it's going and what it wants to do, I don't want to waste my time with the story. Any notable character designs in Overlord? Sort of not really, because they're all intentionally so fucking generic, right? Like, they're all intentionally every single JRPG. Like, that's where Overlord draws its character designs from. It's like every stereotypical high fantasy JRPG you've ever played in your life and heard about, and every stereotypical high fantasy anime you've ever seen in your life. So there's, like, sort of, like, none of them, and they are sort of by design, none of them unique at all, because that's how that's supposed to go. I'm trying to think about it, like, I like that Demiurge is so ugly when he goes full demon mode. Like, I like that they have that. It's, again, it's very basic, but I like that he has the thing of, like, he's mostly, like, the demon in, like, the very swanky suit and tie, like, very suave, very good-looking, very handsome. And then when he goes demon mode, he gets fucked up. I like the, what's the name of the maid? The bug maid? Like, the maid who's, like, the bug with the mask thing on. I like her a lot. I think she's very cool. But outside of that, not really. Chowder Tea, how far are you in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Well, like I said, I only read the Jotaro versus Dio bit, the one that, like, can't remember. It's not Diamonds thing, but can't remember what it's called. But that one, I've read that one. What are your thoughts on it so far? Not really. Like, the bit I read is, like, mostly my thoughts about JoJo are aesthetic. Like, that's really the main thing about JoJo that I have engaged with is the aesthetics. Like, I think the aesthetics are interesting. I think they're fascinating. I think they're very cool. I think they're really engaging to look at and to think about. I don't know that I'm especially invested in the story. Again, because I've only got the Jotaro Dio thing, where it's just like, it's the sins of the fathers thing. And I don't feel like there's that much more to it. Really? But that's, again, haven't engaged with anything past that point, so who knows? Kenji the Sneck, I've seen you talk about how little you know about Japanese culture and the symbology of certain games for the culture. I mean, I'm not ignorant of Japanese culture and history, it's just I don't know enough about it to feel comfortable talking authoritatively about it, is the thing. So I was wondering if you were ever planning on doing some fun research on your own time for Japanese culture and traditions, or will you save that for when you have to do it for a video? Yeah, I mean, I don't have time for anything else. I don't have time to just go and do a bunch of research for a topic that's not related to my work, unfortunately, because that is the economics. Like, I'm doing okay. I'm doing pretty well for myself these days, but it's the economics of running this YouTube channel are still that I need to be working more or less all the time, and I still don't make minimum wage for my labor, so not a lot of time to do that. Claptrap, do you ever feel guilty consuming and enjoying entertainment that has a lot of controversial baggage behind the creators? For instance, I still greatly enjoy the gameplay and character designs of Overwatch, but there's always a gnawing sense of shame at the back of my head when I play a few rounds understanding the shitty business practices that go on behind the scenes of the art I'm supporting. Ditto for League of Legends. I don't think guilt and shame are especially useful feelings when it comes to that kind of thing, because everything is like, and this is not a false equivocation, but everything is problematic. Like, there is no pure media out there for you to enjoy. They just, sorry, you have to give up on that, and there's certainly no, like, and no media produced under capitalism is free of abuse. That's just an inevitable feature of media produced under capitalism, is that there is exploitation and abuse in the production chain. That is just how it is. I'm sorry to say. So, like, for me, I don't think feeling shame and guilt about that is useful. I don't think that spurs you to any useful action to help things. I think it just makes you feel shitty and sort of disempowered and like paralyzed. And it cuts you off from enjoyable experiences without really offering any benefit to anyone in return. Like, my position on stuff like, for example, Overwatch or League of Legends is that if the workers at Blizzard ever call for a boycott, I am there. If the workers at Riot ever say, don't consume the products of this company anymore, I'm fucking there. Like, then it's out the window, and I'm gonna stop making videos about it too. Like, if the workers ever go, no, like, this is no more, then I will follow that, and I'll respect that. But the thing of, like, yeah, like, Riot is a shit company run by garbage people who are assholes and who don't deserve to have sway over that company or benefit from the work of its very talented staff. And there's no point feeling shame about still being engaged with it. In part because that's not really a decision you can fucking make, right? Like, that's, for example, with the Harry Potter books, right? I don't read them. I have thrown out my copies. I have no interest in engaging with them anymore. And the reason I have thrown out my copies and I have no interest in engaging with it at all anymore is because trans people have been pretty explicitly clear, in general, that, hey, stop. Like, this woman is currently part of an active hate campaign, and you need to not give her money and attention, which is why I have plenty of videos that I could make about Harry Potter, like both critical and like there's a video idea that's floating around my head of like re-examining Harry Potter and trying to figure out like what parts of the story were actually good, because it's like I think it's popular to say that J.K. Rowling is a shitty writer and she was terrible and she never had any talent. It was like, and it was only books for children and they had nothing more interesting to say. And I don't think that's true. Like, I think there is more in there, especially J.K. Rowling's hypocrisy in that she wrote a lot of villainous characters of her universe to be doing explicitly what the fuck she's doing right now, and she cannot see the irony. She thinks trans people are the fucking Death Eaters. How the fuck do you do that? Are you insane? Yes, she is insane. Well, she's not insane in the mental health thing, but she is divorced from reality. Like, she sees a completely different universe than we do. Anyway, my point being, I disengage from that universe and I don't talk about it, don't make content about it. I don't engage with any of the products that come from the Harry Potter universe, because this is something that has been asked by the people who are being hurt by this person. Nobody at Blizzard has called for a boycott of Diablo 4, for example, or Overwatch, or any of the products that come out of Blizzard, despite how terribly that company has treated its workers. And that being the case, I think the correct thing to do is like, okay, if this game brings you joy, if it makes you happy, if you are engaged with the characters and the stories in there, write fan art, do fan art, write fan fiction, and shit on the company. Like, just, like, publicly say, hey, fuck you, assholes, treat your workers decently. Support the workers. Like vocally support unionization efforts. Vocally talk shit about the company every time it does something bad. And never, ever, ever let anyone forget what the company has done. Like, never let anyone forget the abuses that were done at Ubisoft. Never let anyone forget the abuses that have been done at Riot. Never let it just fade into history. In fact, I should probably do another video sort of reminding people sometime soon that Scott Gelb still fucking works at Riot despite groping his employees' genitals. That's the way in which you can make some kind of positive difference. And like, no one person, even like whether you have 200,000 subscribers on YouTube or not, we can't address systemic issues on our own. That is not how this works. Systemic issues at a company like Riot or Blizzard are going to be addressed with unionization and with worker control over the means of production, ultimately. Like, or at least worker control over their own fucking labor, right? Like, at least with collective bargaining that puts them in a position of power to push back against the abuses of the companies that they work for. The way we fix this is by pushing for unionization in the games industry. Like, that's the useful thing we can do. Sitting around being ashamed and feeling bad, and I don't want to tell you, like, you're not allowed to have your feelings, but it's not something that creates positive change in the world. Like, it's not something that helps address the problems that are causing the shame and the guilt. So, like, that's a ramble, but that's my thinking on it. Like, that's why I haven't, like, even though Riot has done a bunch of shitty stuff, that's why I haven't disengaged from League of Legends completely, because I still fucking love this fucking universe and these characters. They matter to me. And I think they belong to me. Like, not exclusively, but they're fucking mine too. I've been in this shit for 10 years. Like, I've been here since season fucking 2 of the game. And this shit is mine now too. These characters belong to me now too, in a small part, like in an equal part to everyone else who's been engaged with this universe. This isn't just Riot shit anymore. And so I don't feel like I want to abandon that, this stuff that is important to me, unless the people who make it, the actual workers, the people who are actually responsible for creating this thing that I love, unless they say, hey, this needs to stop now, I'm not going anywhere, right? Because, like, I'm gonna be right here throwing rocks at their cars, like at the CEO's cars the whole time, because I think, in whatever small and insignificant way, that's where I make some kind of positive difference. Some kind. Like, I know my videos get watched at Riot. I know my opinions very occasionally get brought up as points of feedback for the company. I know the criticisms that I have very occasionally get raised internally as something to be discussed, at the very least. So, insofar as I can make any kind of positive change to any of this, I think do that by being engaged with it. Unless and until the workers at Riot say, yeah, no, enough, stop supporting the company. The moment they do, I'm out. And also, like, same rules apply as J.K. Rowling. If there's a bunch of people out in the world who don't work at Riot, but who are being actively hurt by what Riot is doing, and they say, hey, maybe stop support, that would also weigh pretty heavily into my consideration of, like, maybe not engaging with that company's products anymore. But that's the thing, is like, it's the victims of these abuses that get to decide what should be done about them, ultimately, right? Like, that's what I'm trying to get at, is that it's the people who are the victims of the abuses that these companies and people commit that get to decide how it should be reacted to, what restitution looks like, what kind of response is appropriate. And so I don't feel bad about playing a Blizzard game until the workers at Blizzard say, hey, stop doing that right now. We need you to support us by no longer playing the games. Googie, would you consider checking out and giving your own interpretation of the character designs in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure? Again, I've sort of already done that a little bit. I would only really do the ones in the bit that I've actually read. Maybe. But in order to really talk about JoJo, I feel like I would have to dive a lot deeper into it. Like, I would want to read it from the beginning and at least get like a good chunk of the way into it, like a solid chunk of the way into it, before I start really trying to analyze or give opinions about that from like a character design perspective. Because like I said, JoJo seems to be drawn from fashion, like they draws on different character design rules, but I don't know that I'd feel comfortable talking on it without having dived into it a lot more. Let's see, Atlas. I know you've covered a couple of them on the Shorts channel already, but I'm curious to know your general opinion on inanimate object Pokemon. Execute, Vanillite, Klefki. Do you think the concept of a Pokemon resembling an inanimate object is fundamentally interesting or uninteresting on its own? Are there any specific Pokemon that you think execute the concept well, or are there specific elements that you consider necessary or conducive for a good inanimate object Pokemon design? I think Vanillite is kind of weak, because it's like Chandelure. I think Chandelure works really well. I think the Teapot Pokemon, whose name escapes me right at the moment, I think that works really well, because these are objects that, to me, it kind of makes sense that they would be ensouled. That, like, this is, like, the sort of, a lot of the object Pokemon designs sort of draw from, in part, from a Shinto tradition that says if an object is alive, air quotes, like if an object survives for over 100 years, it becomes ensouled and has a spirit of its own. Like, there's a famous umbrella monster in Japanese folklore that comes from that idea. And it, to me, in order to really work, the ones that work the best anyway, not they can also work in other ways, but the ones that work the best are the ones where it feels like, oh shit, yeah, that could be a thing that could exist for like, that could live for long enough, air quotes, to be ensouled. So something like Aegislash, for example, like, that works for me. Chandelure, that works for me. The Teapot, that works for me. Vanillite, on the other hand, is like, that's fucking, like, that's, for some reason, that doesn't work for me, because it's not that you can't have a food Pokemon. Like, there's plenty, like, the Alcremie is an excellent little thing, like, and the new one, the one that was the bread puns, the bread dog, Fido. There it is. Like, they work pretty well, but Vanillite, for some reason, it just seems too much like this is just a fucking ice cream cone that you painted a face on, right? Like, it doesn't look like a creature based on an ice cream cone. It just looks like an ice cream cone, right? So that's sort of like, it's a fuzzy thing because it's all about execution. But like, Vanillite doesn't work for me for that reason, because it just looks like you doodled a face on the thing, and it doesn't look like the thing itself is a creature that looks like the inanimate thing. Where Chandelure, like, it has limbs, it has a head, it has a body, like, it sort of makes sense as a critter, as a monster of some sort, right? Same thing with Sandygast, like, which is something that, like, people do give that one a little bit of shit because it's just a sandcastle, but, like, yeah, no, that makes sense though, because you're using the features of the sandcastle to create the face of the Pokemon, and that's like a good little ghost creature. And Vanillite is like, it's just a fucking ice cream with a face on it. Like, it's not... the shape of the ice cream doesn't inform, like, the anatomy of the creature itself. And that would be sort of my main criteria, I think, is like whether I feel like, okay, this is a creature that looks like the thing, rather than this is the thing, but we painted a face on it. Kenji the Sneck, what is your opinion of the thematic of Monster Hunter in general? Mainly the feeling and idea of hunting monsters and animals not as a means of getting rid of them entirely or saving the world, but as an ideal of living alongside nature and hunting a monster to gain a very intimate knowledge of the monster and of nature. I don't think I saw that part of your analysis and playthrough, and if you talked about this already, I don't remember it. Yeah, it's that thing of like... One of the weaknesses of Monster Hunter in that way is it feels, especially in modern times, like a series that's a little bit embarrassed about its own premise. Because Monster Hunter is about, here, go out and kill monsters, and grab all their parts, make cool shit out of them, and then use that shit to kill more monsters. Like, that is what Monster Hunter is about. That's the core loop of the game, is that it is fucking awesome to go out and murder a bunch of monsters and make cool shit out of their stuff, right? And it's also like, it's sort of... In a modern time, and even, like, well, before that, it's a little bit uncomfortable to sort of like, oh, these are just natural animals that live in the world, so you're just going out and murdering a bunch of animals whose only crime is existing because of it's for fun or whatever, or to gain prestige. That's sort of an uncomfortable thing, right? It's something that's a little bit, that feels a little bit ugly, and I feel like the Monster Hunter series is generally it struggles a little bit with feeling embarrassed about that, and certainly in Rise, it's this thing of like, no, it's because of there's it's a rampage. It's the monsters are being crazy. They're like, oh, they're being controlled by rampage, and then they're dangerous, and so we have to, because of that's unnatural. And that's sort of the thing they sort of went for, is like, oh, we are only hunting the monsters to address an imbalance, right? Like, there's something imbalanced, there's something wrong going on here, and then our role as stewards is to go out and like kill the monsters that are relevant to the problem, and then we're going to fix the problem by killing the monsters. That's always the solution. It's always like, the solution is always kill the beast, is the thing. That's why it doesn't quite work, is because like you never have the options of like relocating the beast, or like making changes to the beast's environment so that it stops being enraged, or like maybe like, hey, we built an outpost over here and now this monster is really angry because we fucked with its territory, go kill the monster. It's never, oh, we built this outpost here and then that fucked with the monster's territory, maybe we shouldn't have done that, go dismantle the outpost, right? So Monster Hunter has that problem, that itself doesn't really seem like it has found a way to fully reconcile. It doesn't really seem to have found a way to fully reconcile the idea that, yeah, no, you're just fucking murdering a lot of animals. That's the gameplay loop, is murder a lot of animals, and I don't really know what the solution to that is, but just that, to me, that always feels like a bit of an elephant in the room, or an 800-pound gorilla in the room, really, that the game just doesn't want to acknowledge and fully deal with. And that's where I think, like, Wild Hearts, the Monster Hunter-like game that came out more recently, it goes, no, these are ghost monsters. These are spirit monsters. These are spirit realm, unnatural, supernatural creatures that don't exist in the natural world, and that sort of solves the problem, because it's like, no, you're not just going out and killing these things because of whatever, you're killing them because they're fucking monster ghosts, and they're monsters. Like they're not just animals that live in the world and are part of an ecosystem, they are fucking monsters, and they need to die because they're monsters. Like that sort of removes it a little bit from that thing of like, this is a game about hunting, right? This is a game about hunting for fun and prestige, which is what Monster Hunter ultimately is. And I think maybe the solution for Monster Hunter is just to go, fuck it. Like, let's just have, there's lots of monsters out there in the world, and they fight and kill among each other all the time, and we're doing this for fun, because like to sort of abandon the seriousness about like the balance of nature and all of that, and just kind of go, woo, fucking yeah, like, we're going on a fucking monster hunt because it's fun, right? To lean into a more cartoony vibe, like a one where it's like, it's clear from the vibe of the game that you're not supposed to take the story that seriously, that you're not supposed to think that deeply about it. I think that might be easier to sort of do, because you're already asking people to sort of ignore the uncomfortable realistic implications. And if you're gonna do that, maybe you should go more in a cartoon direction. Maybe you should divorce yourself even more from reality in aesthetic and vibe. But Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I never feel bad about murdering a bunch of monsters in Final Fantasy games, you know, because they don't engage with that question at all. They don't even try to sort of justify why you're slaughtering so many of them. It's just, hey, they're monsters, kill them. Who cares? Like, whatever. It's about that presentation style. So I don't know. Connor, hey Skyn, the YouTuber who has made me cry the most. Oh, no! Oh, no! I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Oh, I hope it was good crying. Oh no. Oh shit, I don't want that to be my legacy. I need to get funnier. Oh no. Oh fuck, shit. Oh no. No more serious videos, ever. I've been sick lately and binging your Final Fantasy XIV playthrough. My favorite part has been the absolute justified rants against Ul'dah. It got me wondering what got you into leftist ideology. You've said in another life you could have fallen down the manosphere hole, so what set you down this path instead? I had a good friend who kicked my ass about it. Not in terms of getting me into leftism, but like I was very lucky. I found a very good friend group that started helping me address the like internalized sexism that I had going on. Like because I'm a dude who was raised middle class white in like Denmark is like we're often thought of as a very progressive country, but like socially we are like 10-15 years behind on the feminism part, on the racism part. From where the United States might be sort of socially at this point in its general cultural understanding. And so, like, I was there with a whole bunch of, like, completely unexamined, like, sexism and misogyny and all of this sort of masculine self-hatred that comes along with that. Like, because that's what masculinity is under patriarchy, is self-hate, ultimately. Like, a self-hate then must be punished out of you. And... yeah, my friend started, like, helped me address that, like, think my way out of that and learn to, you know, see women as people, which is an important thing to do. And from that point of, like, beginning to understand the structures of sexism and misogyny in society, like, that became the entry point to learning about, oh, wait, shit, racism kind of works in the same way. Like, it has, like, not entirely, but it has a lot of the same features as misogyny, just directed against this... instead of an arbitrary gender category, as an arbitrary racial category. Oh shit, that's kind of the same thing. And then I sort of started being able to work on that. And like because I had that foundation, I sort of started drifting into online communities where leftist politics and like intellectualism ruled the day, right? Like, and not faux fucking right-wing, your facts don't care about your feelings, like Ben Shapiro bullshit intellectualism, which is just anti-intellectualism in drag, but like actual critical discussion and thinking, like from people who actually like gave a shit about teaching someone something new and learning things and deconstructing old biases, which like in part Tumblr was like where I got a lot of my first exposure to like the existence of trans people, which is like, it's not that I was unaware that trans people existed previously, but I was unaware that they existed as people. I understood them as caricatures, essentially. Like, what I thought a trans woman was for the longest time, because it was the only media example I had ever seen, was the villain of Ace Ventura Pet Detective, a movie which, if you have seen it, you will know why that is bad. That is very, very bad and extremely transphobic. And so going on social media, Tumblr, especially being around artists in general, started exposing me to people who were queer, people who were genderqueer in very many ways, people who were trans, like people like who articulated those experiences, who articulated the experience also of being a person of color under any circumstances. And just sort of slowly by being exposed to this stuff and absorbing the writing and like the theoretical writing about what these experiences are like and why it matters, that slowly started to shape my thinking. It was never like a big aha moment as such. It was just, I got steered into an environment where I could start to deconstruct these things and develop my own thinking about them, rather than being stuck in the orthodoxy of patriarchy. But no, yeah, like if not for that friend, like there's a period in my life where I would have been very vulnerable to Andrew Tate. Like, where I would have been very vulnerable to, and especially to Ben Shapiro and, like, the early YouTube atheists, like, the sort of atheist debate community, like your Thunderfoots, and, like that whole section who used, like, sort of anti-religious sentiment, because I also had, like, a lot of atheistic feeling in me, as a means to sort of create this very hostile, very toxic atmosphere that they then turned towards, like, oh, these fucking women, they're like the religious wingnuts because they're asking you to accept this religious dogma about how women are equal to men and how there can be trans people instead of basic biology, which is the science truth. Don't look it up. Which is the thing, like, they never want you to actually look, like, oh, it's just basic biology science. Like, they never want you to actually look up the science, which says that, oh no, wait, actually, turns out we have more than 2 types of chromosome pairs. Ha! Funny how intersex people are a thing that exists. Funny how gender expression, even as a function of biology, even for people who have XX or XY chromosomes, funny how that's all fucked up and weird, how you can have XY chromosomes and still have a vagina, XX chromosomes and have a penis at the same time. Weird how that works. Never want you to look up the science, those people. They just want you to accept that they have pronounced what the science is, and therefore the discussion's over. Anyway, no, yeah, there was a time in my life when I was very vulnerable to that shit, and if I hadn't had the grounding, like, from my friend, and it's not like my friend was like an ideologue or anything, it's just that she was a fucking woman who knew what the fuck she was talking about and who was never, ever, ever scared of telling me that I was an asshole. Like, who was never wowed by me ever, was never intimidated by me ever, partly because she was older than me, but like I could never use my maleness to get my way with her, ever. And that, you know, at times was frustrating, but it was also extremely healthy. Like, just, boy, I recommend it, guys. Like, find you a woman who does not give a shit about your bullshit. It is good for you. But that, like, she sort of introduced me, like, and not in the sense of, like, throwing a feminist book at me and saying, read this shit, but just in the sense of, like, she forced me to confront when I was being an asshole, which I was frequently. Like, and I... People sometimes sort of call me an unproblematic fave, and I cannot stress to you enough how true that isn't. Like, I'm precious about my privacy. I'm not going to tell stories. I just want to tell you that, like, there are people in the world who could tell stories about me that would demolish that image that you might have of me pretty significantly, and they would be fully justified in doing so. Because I have done things that are not cool. I am not unproblematic. I have a past, and I grew up every bit as sexist and misogynist as, like, anyone else in my position might. So, like, don't put me on a pedestal from which I can let you down. Because that's a disservice to you, because you're gonna get your feelings pretty badly hurt, and is a disservice to me as well. I'm a complex person. I have been a lot worse than I am right now. A lot worse. Please keep that in mind when you think of me. Emma Marks. Hey, Skyn, you mentioned something similar in the Odyssey video, but I think Riot Games has been choosing the wrong champions for skin lines just to complete them. Like adding Battle Academia Leona or Star Guardian Oriana kind of messes with the story and the skin line is trying to tell you. I don't get why they're cramming these champions into lines that don't fit when more suitable options released in the same year. What's your opinion on bloated skin lines and these types of unnecessary additions that, in my opinion, end up weakening the universe? I mean, what you just said at the end is that it's bloated and unnecessary, and it ends up weakening the universe. The specifics and the politics about how, like, Riot Games considers skin lines as saleable asset products, right? Like the only value that to Riot Games, the corporation, that a skin line has is that they can sell more of them. And like, oh shit, people really like the project skin for Yasuo. So, okay, let's make a project skin for some other characters because they like project, so and they bought it for Yasuo, so maybe they will buy it for Lucian. Maybe they will buy it for Leona. Maybe they will buy it for 487 other champions that we're going to slap that shit on until it stops making money. And that's how Riot thinks of skin lines. Like, Riot the corporation, not necessarily the people at the company, but Riot the corporation sees skin lines as a product only as that. The only purpose of having a skin line is because if there is Star Guardian Lux, people might go, oh shit, it would be so cool to have a Star Guardian costume for Ari. It would be so cool to have a Star Guardian costume for etc. or whatever, right? And that makes it more saleable. That helps guarantee increased sales and more money. And so when artists at Riot are like, shit, we would like to return to this universe, we would like to do more Star Guardian content, then Riot, the corporation, says, okay, how many skins are you going to sell? And it's like, you can't just keep selling the same Star Guardian skin for Lux over and over again. That's not really an option. So in order to make sure that you tap new markets, you have to pick new champions to add to the skin line, which means that the only means that like Riot's artists and writers have if they want to tell more story inside of a skin line universe ever is they have to throw more characters in there for whom they can sell new skins, because I think they've tried before like selling new skins in the same universe on the same characters, and it just hasn't worked as well. I think they have a lot of market research also that proves that people wouldn't buy two Odyssey skins for Jinx, for example. They have the Odyssey skin for Jinx, and they're going to have one that they prefer over the other, and they're not going to want to buy the other one. So that decreases the sale potential for that. And that's the table stakes, unfortunately, of how this shit works with Riot, is that the corporation is pretty fucking set on only ever considering a skin line a saleable asset. In that sense, like they will not consider it a means of storytelling, a means of like doing anything else, unless and until, I guess, Riot Forge decides to make a game set in a skin line universe or something. So that's just, it's the only tool that the people at Riot who want to tell stories in the Star Guardian universe have available, is we have to pick some fucking champions, and those champions have to be able to sell the skin. And that comes down to they get a bunch of data, like they talk to their data people, and the data people say, oh, cool, yeah, like a bunch of Orianna mains have expressed that they would like a Star Guardian skin for the character, for example. A bunch of mains of these champions have the same taste profile as the ones who bought the other Star Guardian skins, so if you make one for them, we can probably get them to buy it. There's a whole lot of data, and Riot is very proud of this. There's a bunch of data, a bunch of user data, a bunch of like surveys, a bunch of all kinds of information that they use to determine which champions are most likely to sell skins. Now, occasionally, the people at Riot, like the skin artists and like the writers and stuff, they manage to pitch some shit through that doesn't sell very well. Any Ornn skin, for example, doesn't sell very well. It's just like I know from people who are Riot who've said that literally like they did an Ornn skin because they thought he deserved to have another skin, but they also knew when they made it that, yeah, no, this is not going to sell. Like, this is just not going to make the money back that it cost to make the skin, because they are actually kind of expensive. You need to pay a lot of people a lot of salary, and you need, like, there's a lot of money that goes into marketing and all kinds of shit. They are kind of expensive to produce, and a lot of skins were made to give a skin to a champion who hasn't had one in a long time, and literally operated at a loss. Like, maybe not forever, but for a very long time, that was a net loss to the company. And so pitching that is really, really difficult. So when we get these baffling choices for skin lines, a lot of the time it's because it just happens to be that the data says that these are the champion mains, or the people who, like, of the people who purchase skins, the whales, who, like, these are the ones who would be most likely to be able to sell a skin from that universe. These are the ones who would be most likely to sell that. And then very occasionally mixed in with that, you get the ones where it's like a passion project for someone at the company to like, no, this champion needs a skin and needs to be in this thing because we have a great idea for it and the mains deserve it. Very occasionally they get to do that. The rest of the time, it's driven by marketing. So, like, it's not driven by narrative, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, narrative doesn't get a say on this very much. Matrox DX again. Hey, Scan, 3 questions. Do you think that gaining weight is a way to show a character's emotional growth or positive healing after years of trauma is a trope that should be used more? I mean, I have complicated feelings about that. I am sort of at a point where I really feel like body weight should be disassociated from a lot of the traits and tropes that it's associated with now. Just because we live in a world that is so fucking fat-phobic, that is so body negative, that is so hateful towards completely normal human bodies, that treats just the simple existence of someone who is fat as like this totalizing violence almost, like this thing that is like that is overwhelming and overpowering, defines everything about the a character or about who a person is, right? Like, and you see that all like recently on TikTok. Like I think it was, I can't remember if it was Nike or Adidas. They put out an ad where it was an ad for their new line of like plus-sized exercise clothes, like exercise clothes that's specifically made for people who have very fat bodies, like not just people who are chubby, but like people who are really fat. And in order to promote that line, they showed a woman who was very, very fat exercising in those clothes. And you can imagine the stitches and the comments and like the reaction and the commentary on that from so many people, where like literally all the video was a woman who happened to be quite fat, like very fat indeed, exercising. That's all it was. There was nothing else going on except she was exercising in some clothes from the brand. And just the number of people who were screaming and shouting and like, oh, it's disgusting, it's fucking filthy, and you're promoting obesity, and like, how dare you show this to us, and this is ugly, and this is immoral and wrong, just to show a person who's very fat exercising. So like for me, I'm at a point where I'm like, I would like us to just disconnect body weight from any traits at all. I don't like the idea of body weight as a design feature being associated with any positive or negative traits, because that's the kind of essentialism that leads to that, right? Having said that, it's also like, that's a little bit like saying I would like it if gumdrops fell from the sky into my open mouth whenever I snap my fingers. I certainly I don't think I would like that. Chocolate maybe. Like it's a nice wish. It's not where we are, and it's not where we're gonna be. Body shape and body size is gonna be a character design thing that you are gonna have to work with from now until probably forever. Like, that's just where we are. So, like, I wouldn't personally do that. Like, I wouldn't personally, like, unless you're showing a character getting over severe body dysmorphia, or like severe self-hate, or like an eating disorder, like anorexia nervosa, like something that has caused them to abuse themselves by becoming excessively skinny, I think you should be careful about it. Like, you should be very careful about what are you implying about the semiotics and the inherent meaning of a character's body shape and size when you do something like that. Like, I just want people to be more careful and conscious about what they do and what they say, what essentialisms that they're establishing or supporting when they do something like that. Because just the hate, the hatred, and the sheer violent disgust that exists for fat people in the world it's fucking mind-boggling, and it's infuriating. And it's very, very hard not to get rolled into that. Like, I made a video presenting 2 character designs for Ashe, and I said that these are equally good in many ways. Like, they just emphasize different things, and one is not better than the other, and neither of them are meant to be like inherently superior to her base design. They're just different suggestions. And just the amount of people who are just like, oh, this guy is a fat fetishist, he wants to fuck fat people, that's the only reason why he does it, because he has a fetish for fat people, he's got a fucking pervert. Like, because that's it's the only mental framework within which they could even comprehend that someone would think that it is good that a character could be fat. Like, that a character being fat could be a positive quality of them. The only mental framework that they had with which to understand that as a concept is that he must want to masturbate over it. Like, it must be he gets his dick hard. It must be some kind of hedonistic perversion, because otherwise how could anyone possibly ever believe that there is something positive about a fat body, right? That's the level of visceral, violent disgust that we're operating with when we deal with these things. And it's deeply irrational. It's like a kind of like mass psychosis almost, like the way that people react to this shit. So like, yeah, I just be careful. Like, when you tie a character's body weight to any positive or negative trait in their character, be careful which ones it is, because you might end up reinforcing stuff like, oh yeah, like the funny fat friend who's utterly desexualized and like who's just like jolly and kind and doesn't have a personality very much beyond just being the nice guy. Like that's a positive archetype, like the kind, wise, sort of friendly fat friend, but it's also a dehumanization of like people who happen to be fat who do have sexualities, you know, like they do have depths to them. And the villainous fat guy, like the fat guy where like their fat body is an embodiment of their greed and their hunger, and like how much they like abuse and demean other people and how disgusting they are. Oh god, oh so disgusting they are, these fat people, like this fat villain. Be careful about that. Like be careful about how you use it, because there's so many extant hatreds and phobias and cruelties that if you are not careful, you can end up playing into them. So yeah, like that's where I am with that. But I also recognize that like it is a part of character design. You can't get away. The tropes exist. People will read those tropes and they will understand those tropes as part of it. When you make a fat character, that has some certain associations in people's minds, and they're gonna project those onto the character whether you like it or not. So you have to be ready to deal with it. It's just oh my fucking god. That's what it is. It's just Anyway, do you usually enjoy shipping characters, or is the fandom culture around most shipping just too toxic for you to enjoy the ship wars? I mean, it's like the fandom and culture around shipping is mostly toxic in toxic fandom spaces, which is a bit of a tautology to say, but like it's like if like just fucking don't go like I have a friend who's like a lot on Genshin Twitter, and she has some opinions about like Genshin characters that fit together and like their character designs and which characters are cool and which ones are not. And boy howdy, there's a lot of toxicity in the community that she's a part of, and she often talks about it, and she doesn't seem to be having a very good time with them, which I can't blame her for. And it's the same thing, like League Twitter is a bit of a toxic hellhole a lot of the time. If you ever get singled out by anyone for anything, like see the comments that I got after my fucking Ash video. But it's like, I don't think shipping community, like fan communities are toxic by nature. It's just that the loudest and most prominent ones tend to be the most toxic because they are loud. Like, because those are the communities that attract a lot of attention. If you go like and dig a little deeper and find like the nice discords and you know and find the authors that write the good shit on AO3, you can kind of just nope out of a lot of that. Like you can just ignore it. So no, like, but anyway, you asked me if I enjoy shipping characters, and sort of yes and no. Like I am aromantic, so it's not really where my mind goes for a lot of characters. Like I'm more at, like, it's not. I mean, I friendship characters, I guess. Like, I like character dynamics. I like shoving two characters together to see what would happen, whether that turns into a powder keg that explodes or passionate lovemaking under the moonlight. That's sort of less interesting or important to me than whether or not the dynamic is somehow compelling and fun. So in that sense, yeah, I love shipping characters. 3, a bit of a heavier one. Have you ever felt or used to feel like you're falling behind, like you're not progressing in life fast enough compared to your peers? Oh yeah, that's called being a creative. A person of any creativity. Like, that's every artist I have ever known in my life, all of them without exception, even the godlike hyper-talented motherfuckers who just seem to come out of the womb with a fucking pencil and brush in hand, like pumping out the most amazing art I've ever seen in my life. Every single one of them, all of them without exception, feel that way. They all feel like they're falling behind. They all feel like they're not progressing fast enough. They all feel like they're not doing well enough. Every single one of them. The only people who don't feel that way tend to be the assholes. like the only people who don't have any sense of that insecurity, like they have a tendency to be people who are so far up their own ass that you'd need a team of splunkers to get them out, right? Like, that's not always. Like, some people are just more mentally healthy. Some people just deal very much better with their anxieties and shit. But like the people who are sort of like never have any kind of feeling of being left behind or feeling insecure or whatever, I consider that a little bit of a red flag. So the advice on how to deal with the feeling is to understand that this is an irrational feeling fundamentally, because everyone feels it. Like, everyone, by definition, everyone can't be falling behind at the same time. That's not how that works. So if everyone, everywhere, all the time feel this way, that means it's an irrational feeling. It is not true. And you can, like, you can't stop feeling it. You can't just tell your feelings to go away. That's not how it works. But you can work on how you address that feeling. Like, whether you allow it into your head and, like, spiral around in there and you sort of go, shit, oh my god, maybe that's true. Like, whether you allow it room to bounce around and influence your thoughts, or whether you go, okay, this is a feeling that I have. It is there. I am feeling this way. This is the truth of how I'm feeling right now. And also, I know it isn't true. Right? And that doesn't make the feeling go away. That doesn't make you not feel that way anymore, but you can start to rob its power over you a little bit. You can start to, like, very consciously, very intentionally start to think, yes, the feeling is there. I feel this way. There's a lot of things in my life that make me feel that way. Like, I look at these people who are so much better than me and they're younger, and I don't know how the fuck they do it, and they make more art than I do, and I'm stuck, and I'm feeling disempowered, and I'm getting depressed. All of these things are true, and yet I know for a fact that the feeling is not rational, and my purpose in life isn't to be ahead of other people. Right? Like, that's something that I found very helpful, is to sort of disabuse myself of the notion that I need to be ahead of other people. I don't. I don't need to be ahead of other people. That's not... I wouldn't want to be a person who's like that. Someone for whom it is important that I am ahead of others. That's not... It's not really who I want to be, I don't think. I don't want to be someone who's ahead of other people all the time. And who's constantly trying to get ahead of other people, who needs to be ahead of other people. I think maybe I prefer being someone who's behind other people. Like, who's not constantly out there running to be the first guy in front. I don't mind being behind the curve a little bit. Because, like, when I look at someone else who's behind the curve, I don't feel any hatred towards them. I don't think they're stupid or incompetent or bad. And, like, yeah, maybe the stuff they make isn't as good as someone else, but, like, most of the time I see someone's work and I'm like, oh, there's some cool shit here. Like, I've seen better, but this is still cool. And that's, like, if that's fine for them, if I live in the world and I go out and I see someone, I'm like, okay, they're not the best thing I've ever seen in my life, but I still like it, then surely that's also true for me. That's okay. I don't have to be out in front. I don't have to be ahead of everyone. If I'm behind, that's okay. Like, I'm more, like... you have to be able to pay your rent, obviously. Like, that's the thing about being a creative. Like, once you tie your income to your ability to be the best in your field, oh boy, like, that becomes a different calculus. That's a different thing. That's when you have a very good reason to need to be ahead of everyone else. So don't do that. It would be my advice there. But, like, unless your, like, ability to make a living is inextricably, like just unbreakably tied to you being ahead of everyone else, or being, like, ahead of the middle, or being better than that, like, unless it matters to you materially in a way that, like, really severely impacts your life, you know, maybe it's fine not to be the one who's ahead of everyone else. Maybe that's okay, actually. And certainly for me, I am not the best YouTuber. I do feel like I want to get better. I want to upgrade the quality of my work. I've been thinking about hiring, you know, an editor to help me with some of the workload that I'm struggling with. I've been thinking about ways to improve the channel and do better, but I don't need to be H-Bomber Guy, who's one of my favorite YouTubers on the platform. I don't fucking need to be Jacob Geller, who's one of my favorite video essayists. I don't need to be him. Like, I don't need to. I think it's good that I am the way that I am. Even if that comes with limitations, you know? I don't need to be ahead of them. I don't need to have more subscribers than them. I don't need to make better videos than them. I think it's okay that I don't do that. Yeah, so that would be my feeling, is like be conscious and choose to think these words. Maybe say them out loud, is that I have the feeling is there, and, like, I can't think my way out of it, and also I know that the feeling isn't the truth. Like, the feeling is a feeling. It is not facts. It is not an objective observation of the reality of the world. It is a feeling. And that can help you take back some control over yourself, over your mind from those kinds of thoughts. It's not something that just fixes you like snap your finger, but it can help a little bit. Dima Saguier. Saguier. I don't know how to pronounce that. Dima Saguier? Something like that. Hi, Scott. I have 2 questions for you. Have you ever had reverse culture shock, where instead of being shocked by how different the culture was, you realized how similar it was to yours, even though there's never been an influence between the two? For example, last year I watched an Iranian movie called No Bears, set in the middle of the nowhere village, and I couldn't help but smile at all the similarities I found with my culture from the other side of the world. I can't say that I have, really. But that's like, yeah, like, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. Mostly because I've sort of like, for a very long time, I have been aware that people are people everywhere, right? Which is a tedious phrase. It's a cliche. Is sometimes used to imply that like there's no cultural difference between people really, but no, like more that like everyone everywhere needs to take a shit sometimes. Everyone everywhere has diarrhea every once in a while. Everyone everywhere gets the farts. Everyone everywhere like looks stupid and like walks into a pole that they didn't see and look dumb on the street and flub their lines in front of their crush. And everyone everywhere worries about the future. Everyone everywhere like has trouble relating to their parents or their children. Like there are so many parts of the human experience that are just universal that I don't think I've ever had a reverse culture shock such as you describe. Number 2, why don't you have favorites? I personally find having favorites a great way of understanding why I like stuff, what makes my heart go wild. I don't think of favorites as being an objective decision, just a purely subjective one. Well, yeah, but I don't think you're wrong for that at all. It's just that I don't have subjective favorites either. Like very, very few. It's because I have a pretty good understanding of why I like stuff, and it's the thing of like, no, yeah, I Ring of Red is a game that I would be comfortable describing as one of my favorites, but also it's not great. It's not a very good game, really. And I know this of myself. Like, I play it and I do get frustrated and feel that a lot of its systems are kind of tedious and it's kind of clunky. But it's a game where I know that the reason I like it is because I fucking adore the aesthetic. I adore the world that it's set in. I adore the way that this game presents itself. I just adore the clunk of the mechs as they walk over the battlefield and like the sound of the diesel engines in their back. Like, I know exactly why I like them. And because of that, it's like, if I think of another video game, like even if it's like another tactics video game like Final Fantasy Tactics or Ogre Battle Tactics, which are 2 very good tactics games that I really like, I don't have any. There's nothing in my brain that says, oh no, yeah, my like Ring of Red is my favorite over those games. Like, there's just no part of my brain that does that sort of sorts them or ranks them in that way. I just don't rank things in that way. I know what I like, and I know what I like about different things, but it's like that thing of like having this one is this is the one I like the best. It's like, no, because I like them all differently, and I can't compare my liking of them. Like, very rarely can I compare my liking of them in a direct way like that. Like maybe occasionally like direct sequels to games where like the sequel like makes a lot of improvements on something. Mass Effect. Here I can go. Mass Effect 2 is my favorite Mass Effect game. And I can say that it's my favorite over the other 2 Mass Effect games because they are so close to each other in the way that they're put together, right? And I know exactly why it's my favorite. Right? Like, so that's the kind of situation where I can, like, in a very narrow space of things that are very similar to each other, I can pick out one and say, okay, that's the one I like the best because it has all the same qualities as the other, but it does them better. So they're comparable, right? But most things just aren't comparable that way. Like, if you ask me what's my favorite Pokemon design, it's like, There's like 1,000 of the motherfuckers, and they are so different. All of them. Like, it's like, what the hell? And even if you ask my favorite poison type, it's like, no, because like you have your poison types that are like Grimer and Muck and Garbodor that are like sort of the gross ones, or like Coughing, which is like a fart Pokemon. Like, you have those, but then you also have the poison Pokemon that are like ninjas and shit, or that are like the sort of like these mischievous little creature, like with the dark type secondary or whatever, like that is sort of like, these little gremlin creatures and shit like that. And I can't compare. Those are not comparable to one another in the ways in which they might be good. So it's like, it needs to be very specific things that are extremely comparable to one another, and then maybe I can pick a favorite. But any broader than that, and I just get paralyzed by that. But I don't have a preference. I don't have a preference for one of. They're all differently interesting in different good ways, or bad. Like, or maybe they're all like. What's my least favorite? It's the same thing. It's like, well, they all have problems, but they're different problems, and I can't compare them, so I can't rank them next to each other. That's why I'm like that. Blazed Boy. Well, I have a question. You've given your thoughts on Luffy and Zoro in shorts before. I was wondering, what's the deal with Windsmoke Sanji? I don't think Sanji would warrant a what's the deal video necessarily. All on his own. Wait, shit, what am I talking about? Yes, he could, like, well, no. He could definitely carry one. I don't know that I would be the most interested in giving him one as a character. I might do... Yeah, I might do Yamato. Like, Yamato, I think, would make an interesting subject for a What's the Deal video. Luffy would, as well, because he's the main character, and so much of him, who he is, defines so much of what the rest of his that's going on. Yeah, I don't know about Sanji necessarily. Might have to be maybe Sanji and Zoro together in the same video would make, because they have that dynamic duo thing going on, where they're kind of contrasted against each other in a lot of ways. That might make for an interesting way to discuss that. But yeah, no, I don't know. I could, absolutely. Like, it's not that he doesn't have enough to warrant a What's the Deal video. It's just I don't know that I have an interesting angle on him. He's personally my favorite Straw Hat, what with his design and music and fighting style, not to mention how much of focus he's been given in the depth of his character. He, Nami, and Robin are the only ones who get arcs fully focused on them after an introduction. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on him. Do you also enjoy him, and do you think his faults, and I'll be honest, his overplayed joke outweigh the good, or does it strike you as a bit of a balance for you? I mean, my feeling about Sanji is always that, like, it is tedious that he is, like, the guy who, like, is like, oh, Nami's on, like, he's the one who's constantly trying to see someone's tits. But that was more at the beginning of the story, really. Like, I think he was more tedious at the start when it was so sexualized, his constant thing of, like, I want to see your, like, I want to see people naked kind of thing. And it has sort of evolved into more of a thing of he just fucking really loves women a lot. Like, he's just like, holy shit, they're so fucking hot, and they're so adorable, and they're so beautiful, and they make me so happy. And I just want to be around them, and I just want to see them all the time, and I want to do nice things for them, and I want to make them smile. Like, it has sort of evolved into something that's, I would imagine, is still very fucking annoying to be around if you're a woman, because you cannot get fucking rid of him. But it has evolved into a thing that I feel like is a lot less tedious than it was. And my sense about Sanji also always has been that, like, pervert though he is, save for some moments in the early One Piece when he is grosser than he is now, I don't think he would ever lay a hand on a woman without consent. Like, he definitely, like, is, like, very much appreciates seeing a beautiful woman, and freaks out and like the nosebleed and oh my god, like being tedious ass, like, dickhead in that way. But he would never actually harm a woman. Like, that's my read on Sanji, is that, like, for all that he is tedious and kind of a fucking pest to be around, he would never actually harm a woman. Like, he would never actually do something, which is the difference between him and someone like Mineta, who's like, no, he will fully just physically assault a woman. Like, oh, he's happy to. He revels in it, and he thinks it's cool that he wants to physically assault women, by, like, groping them and, like, taking, like, trying to see them naked without their permission. And Sanji, I think, like, he as a character, he would never do that. Like, if it's something that actually hurts a woman, that actually causes like pain or distress or misery to them, he would never do it. Like, and that, I think that's a strong part of his characterization, is that, like, yes, absolutely, he's very annoying, but he would never actually cause harm. And like I think that's the thing that sort of barely saves him for me. I wish desperately, I wish that his fucking time skip arc wasn't just him running away from predatory trans women the whole time, or well, Okama or something slightly more complex than just trans women, but like I wish that his fucking time skip arc and there wasn't so much of him. The thing I hate about him especially is that he is such a shithead about ugly women, and I say ugly with big air quotes on him. Like anyone who's like over the age of 50, and Oda of course only knows 2 ages to draw women, which is extremely young and perfectly beautiful and like porcelain skinned, or else wrinkled and old. Like he just does not have a middle ground. Like Oda does not know what a MILF is, and never has. He only he only knows like a woman who's 25 years old forever. I hate that he's so like he'll see a woman who's old and who isn't like conventionally beautiful, and he'll just like that'll cause him physical. Like, come on, the fuck, dude. If you love women, you have to love all of them. Like, you can't just be like, yeah, I love women as long as they are under the age of 30. Like, no, fuck off. Like, as long as they don't look over the age of 40, then like, you know, fuck that. And that's part of a bigger problem that Oda has in terms of how he presents women, is that he's so bad. Like, he's so... In so many ways, Oda does some of the best female character designs in all of manga and anime. Like, in so many ways, he's so much better and so far ahead of where anyone else in anime and manga nowadays is even willing to go with his character designs of women. And then there are some key ways in which he is just a fucking Neanderthal. Like, where he sucks so bad. Like, just, oh my god. Because, like, Oda can, when he designs women, he can, occasionally, give them really interesting, out there, cartoony, wild, fascinating character designs. He's so willing to play with body shape in a way that no one else in anime and manga ever is. He's so willing to play with morphology. He's so willing to play. He gives people noses. Like, I cannot express to you how much of a big fucking deal that is in anime and manga, that he allows women to have noses instead of being little fucking moe blobs with like a pinprick of a thing that indicates where the tip of their nose is supposed to be. That's kind of a big deal. But then on the other hand, anytime there's a woman who's supposed to be part of the crew, or like supposed to be aspirational or cool in most ways, it's just like, yeah, no, here's your long torso with big tits. There you go. That's your character design. You have a long torso and big tits, and more or less the same face construction as anyone else has, except Robin, who gets to have more of a nose. Like, in so many ways, he's so much better than anyone else is. And then just in some crucial ways, it's like, motherfucker, learn a new trick. Learn a new way to draw a woman. Just, oh my god. Anyway, we sort of drifted away from Sanji there for a second. But that's the thing, is like Sanji's problems as a character kind of can't be separated from Oda's problems as a character designer and as a writer. It's like, I think, for the most part, Oda plays Sanji, especially in more recent arcs, play him in a way where his sort of perversion is harmless, and it can even be charming occasionally, and it's like, it's not just him being a fucking pest to women for no reason, but like that there is an internal psychological reason why he is that way, and that like that he ultimately is someone who wants to do well by women even if he's bad at it. I think that redeems him a lot compared to someone like Mineta, who just wants to harass women and make them miserable, because he's a piece of shit, and it is not funny. So yeah, like, I think his faults don't overwhelm his good parts, but I can also definitely see why someone is like, no, this is too tedious, this is too fucking tired, I don't want to deal with this, is annoying, and I don't like having him around. I absolutely see and respect that. I think he has come around to a place where it's okay. Like, well, not okay, but where it's like the balance feels all right. But I do like him as a character design. Like, I like that he has the full black suit, like the way that Oda uses like his hands and feet, like his funny little eyebrows, and like the way that he's contrasted against Zoro, both like in terms of personality and as a character design. Lots of good stuff there. But yeah, no, the question of like Oda and women is probably something I should do a video about. God, the comments are gonna suck on that one. But anyway, that is all of the questions, I think, for this time. It's been 2 hours. Good lord. That went by in a flash. For me, anyway. Maybe it was really long and tedious for you. I don't know. But if you've enjoyed this, I am glad. If you want to ask me questions like this, you have to become a supporter in some way. You can donate to me one time on Ko-fi. Just remember to link your Discord to your account on Ko-fi.com. That'll give you access to the channel Discord and the supporter rooms, and you can ask the questions in there. You can become a member of this channel. You can become a member of the Shorts channel. You can become a subscriber on Twitch. You can support me on Patreon. Any of those things. Or hell, I think I've even got it set up such that... Oh, no, I had to take that. It was for a while that if you nitro boosted the server on the Discord, you got access to the exclusive rooms as well. But I had to take that down because it turns out that it's really easy for people who are not 18 to nitro boost a Discord server. Same thing goes with Twitch subscribers. And there were some not safe for work rooms tied to that. And I really need to have a paywall between people and the not safe for work rooms to make sure, like... Well, not make sure, you can't make sure, but at least try and sort of make sure that underage people don't get in there. Anyway, that was besides the point. If you want to ask me questions, become a supporter by any means at all, and then you'll be able to ask questions for one of these videos. Thanks for watching. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for spending time with me. I hope this was in some way, shape, or form entertaining, and I will see you next month. Oh, fucked up that audio transition. Oh well.